The wine glass hit the table with unexpected force. "I've been thinking about us," she said, watching my reaction over the rim of her Pinot Noir. "Maybe we should see other people." Her words hung between us like a grenade with its pin pulled. We were celebrating our 5th anniversary at the restaurant where we had our first date. The irony wasn't lost on me. I set down my fork, my appetite instantly vanishing. Her eyes gleamed with a strange mix of anxiety and excitement as she waited for my reaction. For a moment, I said nothing. My mind raced through our recent months together, her late nights at work, the sudden password changes on her phone, her newfound interest in girls' nights that left her coming home with hair smelling of unfamiliar cologne. "You want an open marriage," I stated flatly. "Not a question, a confirmation." "That sounds so clinical," she replied, waving her hand dismissively. "I'm just suggesting we explore options to bring new energy into our relationship. Everyone's doing it these days." Another red flag. When had she ever cared what everyone was doing? I took a slow sip of my bourbon, letting the burn slide down my throat. She fidgeted with her napkin, clearly expecting tears, pleading, an emotional outburst that would give her the moral high ground. "All right," I replied, my voice steady. "I'm in." Her smile froze. "You're in?" "Yeah, why not? If we're both free to see other people, could be interesting." I raised my glass. "To new experiences." She hesitated before clinking her glass against mine. This wasn't the response she'd anticipated. I could almost see the calculations behind her eyes, the script she'd prepared crumbling. "I thought you'd be upset," she admitted. "Why would I be? You're offering me freedom too, right? Equal opportunity for both of us." "Well, yes, but..." "Then we're good." I cut another piece of steak, my appetite suddenly returning. "Any ground rules we should establish?" She stumbled through vague suggestions. Discretion, protection, no mutual friends. I nodded along, adding my own conditions with unexpected enthusiasm. "Communication is key," I said. "Let's be transparent about schedules. And this apartment is our space. No bringing dates home." By dessert, her enthusiasm had noticeably dimmed. She kept studying my face, searching for cracks in my composure, waiting for the moment I'd break down and beg her to reconsider. That moment never came. On the drive home, she was uncharacteristically quiet. I could feel her stealing glances at me, trying to decipher my thoughts. Little did she know I was already planning my next moves, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. When we arrived home, she tried a different approach, sliding her hand up my thigh. "We don't have to start this right away," she whispered. I gently removed her hand. "I think clarity is important. If we're doing this, we're doing it properly. Starting now." As she slept beside me that night, I lay awake mapping out my transformation. She thought she was dealing with the same man she'd been taking for granted. She'd proposed this arrangement thinking only she would act on it, expecting me to wait faithfully while she explored. She had just made the biggest miscalculation of her life. The rules of the game had changed, and she had no idea that she had just unlocked a version of me she wasn't prepared to compete with. 2 weeks into our open marriage experiment, I noticed the subtle shift in power between us. While she dove headfirst into her newfound freedom, I moved with calculated precision, making my own chess moves beneath the surface. She started with transparent attempts to provoke jealousy. The first night she went out, she spent an hour getting ready, more effort than she'd put into our anniversary dinner. Before leaving, she made a show of spraying perfume along her neck, eyes fixed on me as if awaiting some reaction. "Don't wait up," she said, lingering by the door. I glanced up from my laptop with a casual smile. "Have fun. I've got plans myself later." Her expression faltered momentarily. "Oh, with who?" "Just some colleagues. Nothing special." I returned to my screen, dismissing her unspoken demand for details. When the door closed behind her, I didn't waste time wallowing. Instead, I sent a message to my gym buddy confirming our workout, then made 3 phone calls. One to a real estate attorney for a consultation, another to update my banking information, and a third to a tailor for a fitting. Groundwork. Each time she returned from a date, she'd find new ways to drop details into conversation. How attentive her dinner companion was. How refreshing it felt to connect with new people. How late they'd stayed out talking. The performances were transparent, her eyes constantly monitoring my reaction, waiting for the jealousy, the begging, the breakdown. Instead, she found me immersed in self-improvement. I joined a boxing gym and started waking at 5 a.m. for training. My physique was transforming rapidly. I'd updated my wardrobe, started reconnecting with old friends. When she spoke of her dates, I offered genuine interest rather than pain, asking questions that gradually made her uncomfortable with her own game. That's great, I'd say, then change the subject to my own day without offering the details she craved. The asymmetry of information drove her mad. On the third weekend, I returned home late, wearing a new cologne. She was waiting up despite claiming she'd be out, pretending to scroll through her phone. "Good night?" she asked, feigning casualness. "Very." I headed to the shower without elaboration. She followed me to the bathroom door. "You've been acting different lately." I paused. "Different how?" "I don't know. Distant. Secretive. I'm respecting the boundaries we agreed upon." "Isn't that what you wanted?" Her eyes narrowed. "Who were you with tonight?" "A colleague from the marketing department. We grabbed drinks after a project meeting." "The blonde one. The one from your company Christmas party." I smiled slightly. "You said no questions about specifics, remember? Your rule, not mine." She flinched. The rules she'd created, designed to protect her freedom while keeping me in the dark, were now shielding my activities from her scrutiny. "I just thought we'd talk more about all this," she said, her voice softer now. "We can talk whenever you want, but I won't be interrogated about doing exactly what you suggested." Over the next several days, the frequency of her dates decreased while her interest in my whereabouts intensified. She began texting throughout evenings when I was out, started suggesting movie nights on evenings I'd mentioned having plans, even began cooking elaborate dinners, something she hadn't done in months, to create reasons for me to stay home. The most telling change came when she began leaving her phone unlocked and visible. The same phone that had acquired a new password the day after our anniversary. I noticed everything, but commented on nothing. When she mentioned potentially canceling plans with her new friend to attend a concert with me, I declined politely. "You've already made commitments," I said. "I wouldn't want to interfere with those. Besides, I've also made arrangements for that evening." What she failed to understand was that this wasn't a petty game of jealousy for me. This was about reclaiming my dignity and setting the stage for whatever came next, with or without her. A month into our arrangement, the inevitable text message arrived during a business lunch. "Who are you constantly texting?" asked my colleague from marketing. We'd been discussing project deadlines when my phone kept lighting up with notifications. "Just my wife," I replied, silencing the device after the 7th consecutive message. She raised an eyebrow. "Everything okay?" I considered the question. Just navigating some new territory. The truth was more complicated. After weeks of me maintaining polite distance and focusing on self-improvement, my wife had shifted strategies. The barrage of texts began after I mentioned casual dinner plans with my marketing colleague. "Is this a date?" The first message had demanded. I hadn't responded, which triggered the avalanche that followed. Each message grew increasingly urgent, culminating with, "We need to talk about boundaries." The irony wasn't lost on me. When she'd proposed our arrangement, boundaries were deliberately vague. Now that I was participating, she suddenly wanted rules. I excused myself from lunch 15 minutes early. Not to rush home, but to stop by a high-end men's boutique that had called about a custom suit I'd ordered. The investment in myself continued on multiple fronts. When I arrived home that evening, I found her waiting, perched tensely on the edge of the sofa. Her eyes immediately took in my new suit and haircut. "You look different," she stated flatly. "Thank you." I hung my jacket carefully. "We need to talk about what's happening." I sat across from her rather than beside her, creating deliberate space between us. "I'm listening. I think we need clearer boundaries about this arrangement. I thought we established those at dinner." "What's changed?" She struggled visibly, searching for words that wouldn't reveal her true concerns. "I'm worried about how this affects us as a couple. You seem unavailable lately." "I'm following the template you created," I replied evenly. "You've been seeing someone for weeks now. I've recently started spending time with colleagues. The parameters are identical." "It's not the same thing," she insisted. "How so?" "You're being evasive. Secretive." I leaned forward. "Have I asked you for details about your evenings out? Have I demanded to know who you're with or what you're doing?" She fell silent. "You established these boundaries," I continued. "I'm respecting them. If you want to change the rules now, we should discuss why." She shifted strategies, moving to sit beside me, her hand finding my knee. "I just miss you. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea after all." I gently removed her hand. I think it's important we see this through. You felt something was missing in our relationship. This was your solution. Abandoning it at the first sign of discomfort seems counterproductive. The cold logic left her speechless. This wasn't the script she'd anticipated. In her version, I'd be grateful for any crumb of attention after weeks of her exploring options with others. Who is she? She finally asked directly. That's not relevant to our discussion about boundaries. I'm your wife. I have a right to know. You surrendered that particular right when you suggested seeing other people. I replied, keeping my tone neutral despite the sharpness of my words. You can't have it both ways. The conversation ended in stalemate. She retreated to our bedroom while I made myself dinner. Later, I heard her on the phone in hushed tones, likely consulting the friend who had encouraged this modern approach to marriage in the first place. The next morning, she attempted a different tactic, greeting me with coffee and suggesting weekend plans together. Coincidentally, on the evening I'd mentioned having prior commitments. I can't Friday. I have plans, I reminded her. Can't you reschedule? I thought we could reconnect. I honor my commitments, I replied. Perhaps Sunday instead? Her smile tightened. What's happened to you? You never used to be this rigid. I've always valued integrity. Perhaps you're just noticing it now. The most revealing moment came that evening when she casually mentioned she'd run into my marketing colleague at the grocery store. The calculated way she described her, emphasizing physical attributes with subtle disdain, confirmed what I suspected. She'd sought her out deliberately. I made no comment about the coincidence, offering only a neutral, "That's nice," before changing the subject. As I prepared to leave for my evening plans, she made one final attempt, appearing in a dress I'd once complimented, suggesting we order in instead. You have your life, I have mine, I said with finality. That was the agreement. I'll see you later tonight. Walking out that door, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Power. Not over her, but over myself. The man she'd expected to manipulate no longer existed. In his place stood someone even I was just getting to know. Someone who refused to be a backup plan. The social dimensions of our arrangement collapsed spectacularly on a Saturday evening at our friend's dinner party. We hadn't discussed how we would present our new lifestyle to others, which proved to be a critical oversight. I arrived separately, having come directly from a personal training session. When I walked in, conversations momentarily paused. 6 weeks of intense physical training had transformed me. Broader shoulders, narrower waist, a confident posture that commanded attention. Even my wife did a double take, her eyes widening as they traveled over my frame. What happened to you? Asked our host, handing me a drink. You look like you're training for something. Just investing in myself, I replied with a smile. Throughout dinner, I engaged easily with everyone, sharing amusing stories from work, asking thoughtful questions. She watched from across the table, glass after glass of wine disappearing as I effortlessly held the table's attention, something that had been her domain for years. The unraveling began when a couple we hadn't seen in months asked about our summer plans. Actually, we're trying something new in our relationship. My wife interjected before I could respond, her words slightly slurred. We've opened things up a bit. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Our host nearly choked on his wine. Opened up? Someone finally asked. We're seeing other people, she clarified, attempting a casual tone that fell decidedly flat. It's very modern, very healthy. All eyes shifted to me, expecting embarrassment or discomfort. Instead, I maintained perfect composure, taking a deliberate sip of water. It was her suggestion, I added calmly. About 6 weeks ago now. Her face flushed crimson. She hadn't expected me to clarify the origin of our arrangement so directly. It's a mutual decision, she attempted to recover. Absolutely, I agreed. After you brought it up, I decided to participate fully. The emphasis on fully wasn't lost on anyone. Questions followed, awkward, probing inquiries that she had clearly not anticipated when bringing up our private affairs. Throughout the inquisition, I maintained an air of dignified detachment, neither defending nor condemning the arrangement. She, by contrast, grew increasingly flustered, especially when asked directly about her recent dates. That's private, she snapped. I thought the whole point was being open, remarked a friend, eyebrow raised. By dessert, the dynamic between us had become the unspoken focal point of the evening. When I received a text and smiled at my phone, Her fork clattered loudly against her plate. "Who's that?" she demanded, abandoning all pretense of composure. "Remember our boundary agreements." I replied quietly, pocketing my device. On the drive home, the tension finally exploded. "You humiliated me in front of everyone," she accused. "By doing what exactly? Confirming the arrangement you announced to the table? You made it sound like it was your idea. It was. You're flaunting it. I'm participating in it. There's a difference." She shifted tactics. "I've been thinking that maybe we should pause this experiment. It's creating distance between us." "Distance," I repeated, keeping my eyes on the road. Interesting choice of words. What's that supposed to mean? You weren't concerned about distance when you were the only one exploring options. The distance became problematic when I started doing the same. That's not fair. No, it isn't, I agreed. But neither was your original expectation. You wanted freedom while I waited at home. When I claimed equal freedom, suddenly the arrangement lost its appeal. She fell silent for several minutes. When she spoke again, her voice had softened to a calculated vulnerability. "I think I was just looking for something that was missing between us. But seeing you with someone else." "I haven't said I'm with anyone," I interrupted. "You've assumed that. Just as you've assumed I'd be devastated by your activities rather than inspired to improve myself." We arrived home in silence. As we entered our apartment, she tried one more approach, stepping into my space and placing her hands on my chest. "I miss us," she whispered, leaning in for a kiss. I gently stepped back. "Which version of us? The one where you had private passwords and late nights while I remained oblivious? Or the one where you explore options while I sit faithfully waiting? Because the version where we both have equal freedom seems to be the one you're suddenly opposing." Her expression hardened. "You've changed." "Yes," I acknowledged without apology. "That was inevitable once the rules changed." She retreated to the bedroom, slamming the door with theatrical force. I settled on the couch with a book, undisturbed by the dramatics. My phone buzzed with another message, this time from my attorney confirming our Monday appointment to discuss asset protection options. The game she had initiated was approaching its final move. What she didn't realize yet was that I was no longer playing to win her back. I was playing to win my life back. 2 days after the dinner party disaster, I returned home to find her sitting at our dining table with a determined expression. A bottle of wine, my favorite, was open beside 2 glasses. The apartment smelled of the dish she'd cooked on our first anniversary. The scene was meticulously set for reconciliation. "We need to talk," she began as I set down my keys. "I'm listening." I remained standing, declining the obvious invitation to sit. She poured wine into both glasses, sliding one toward me. "I think we should end this arrangement. It's not working for us." "Define not working," I replied, making no move toward the offering. "It's creating tension, distrust. We're growing apart instead of closer." She took a deep breath. I made a mistake suggesting it. I studied her carefully. The admission cost her visibly, but there was calculation behind it. A strategic retreat rather than genuine regret. "Why did you suggest it in the first place?" I asked, the question I should have posed that night at the restaurant. She faltered. "I told you. I thought it might bring new energy." "The truth," I interrupted. "After 5 years, I deserve at least that." Her eyes dropped to her wine glass. "I was curious about exploring options, while keeping me as a safety net," I finished for her. "That's not fair." "Then correct me." My voice remained steady. "Explain how you expected this arrangement to work in practice." The silence stretched between us, filled with unspoken truths. Finally, she attempted another approach. "Does it matter why it started? I'm saying I want to end it. To recommit to us." "It matters entirely." I finally sat down, not out of surrender, but to maintain eye contact on equal ground. "You didn't expect me to participate. You expected me to wait faithfully while you explored. When I matched your behavior instead, you suddenly want to change the rules. That's not. It is." I pulled out my phone, pulled up an app, and slid it across the table. "You've been tracking my location for the past month." Her face drained of color as she stared at the screen displaying the tracking app she'd secretly installed during one of my showers. "You've been monitoring my texts, questioning my colleagues, creating emergencies when I have plans, all while continuing your own activities. How did you?" "I've been paying attention. Something I should have done much earlier in our marriage." She switched tactics immediately, tears forming. "I was afraid of losing you." "No," I corrected gently. You were afraid of losing control over me. There's a difference." The tears vanished as quickly as they had appeared. Her expression hardened. "Fine. Yes. I wanted to see if there were better options without risking what we had. Is that so terrible? Many couples have arrangements. The arrangement itself wasn't the problem. The dishonesty was. You wanted unequal terms. When equality was established, you tried to sabotage my participation while continuing yours." I reached into my pocket and removed a folded paper, placing it beside her phone. "The password to your private email account. The one you access only from your work computer. You might want to be more careful with your password management." Her eyes widened in genuine shock. "I haven't read it," I clarified. "Unlike you, I respect boundaries. But the fact you created a secret account to coordinate your activities speaks volumes. You have no right." "You're correct. I don't. Just as you had no right to track my movements or search my belongings. Yet here we are." She grabbed her wine glass, draining it in one desperate swallow. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing," I answered truthfully. "I wanted a partnership built on mutual respect. What I discovered instead was that I've been living with someone willing to manipulate circumstances to maintain control while creating the illusion of freedom. That's not a marriage. That's a power dynamic." "So what now?" she demanded, anger replacing the artificial vulnerability. "You're punishing me by doing exactly what I suggested?" "No. I'm living authentically for the first time in years. The person you're seeing now, focused, confident, unwilling to accept manipulation. This is who I am when I'm not compromising my values to make you comfortable." "And the woman from marketing? Is she part of your authentic journey?" The bitterness was undisguised now. "My relationships are no longer your concern. Not after you explicitly surrendered interest in them." Her hand slammed against the table. "I'm still your wife. A title you were willing to compromise when it suited your purposes," I replied calmly. "You can't claim the privileges while abandoning the responsibilities." As we sat in the wreckage of her orchestrated reconciliation, one truth crystallized between us. The rules she'd created to expand her freedom had instead liberated me from the constraints of her expectations. The realization transformed her expression from anger to something I recognized immediately: fear. Not of losing me, but of losing the comfortable arrangement where her needs superseded mine. "What are you saying?" she whispered. "I'm saying I accept the terms you originally proposed. Complete freedom for both of us. Not as a temporary arrangement, but as our new reality." I stood, leaving the wine untouched, and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" The panic in her voice was unmistakable. "To exercise the freedom you insisted we both needed. I suggest you do the same." As I closed the door behind me, I recognized that the marriage had ended the moment she proposed seeing other people. Everything since had merely been the necessary steps toward accepting that reality. The final confrontation occurred exactly 8 weeks after that fateful anniversary dinner. I'd spent the intervening time methodically rebuilding my life from the foundation up. New workout regimen, new wardrobe, new financial arrangements, new social connections, even a new apartment lease, signed but not yet disclosed. The transformation wasn't just external. Something fundamental had shifted within me, a recalibration of my self-worth that no emotional manipulation could undermine. When I entered our apartment that evening, she was waiting. The artificial warmth of previous reconciliation attempts was gone, replaced by cold determination. "This has gone far enough," she announced, arms crossed defensively. "I'm ending our arrangement." Effective immediately, I set my gym bag down calmly. "On what authority?" The question visibly startled her. "Excuse me. You unilaterally decided to open our marriage. Now you're unilaterally deciding to close it. My input apparently remains irrelevant. You're deliberately misunderstanding. This was supposed to strengthen our relationship. Was it?" I retrieved a bottle of water from the refrigerator. "Or was it meant to justify what was already happening while keeping me committed to you?" Her silence was confirmation enough. "I've consulted an attorney," she finally said, changing tactics. "If you continue with this behavior, I'll file for divorce citing infidelity." I couldn't help but laugh, not mockingly, but at the sheer absurdity. "You're threatening to divorce me for doing exactly what you explicitly asked me to do. It's different, and you know it." "Different how?" "Because you didn't expect me to actually participate? Because you assumed I'd be too insecure to explore my options while you explored yours. Different because you're doing it to hurt me." "No," I corrected her. I'm doing it because I finally recognize my value. The fact that my self-respect causes you discomfort is your problem, not mine. I walked to the closet, retrieving a folder I'd prepared weeks earlier. Since you mentioned legal consultation, you should know I've done the same. I placed the folder on the coffee table between us. Inside were bank statements, text messages, location tracking records, 2 separate credit card statements with charges for hotel rooms on nights she claimed to be with friends. "What's this supposed to be?" she asked, voice suddenly uncertain. "Documentation of the arrangement you proposed and your activities within it, dating back well before your suggestion that we see other people." Her face paled. "You've been spying on me?" "No, I've been paying attention. There's a difference." I sat across from her, maintaining deliberate eye contact. "The night you suggested opening our marriage, you'd already been seeing someone for at least 3 months. The password changes, the late nights, the defensive behavior, it was all there. I just refused to see it." She started to deny it, then stopped, recognizing the futility. "Your suggestion wasn't about strengthening our marriage. It was about retroactively justifying your actions while maintaining the benefits of our relationship. You wanted permission without granting equal freedom." "That's not true." "It is." My voice remained level. "When I agreed too easily, you were confused. When I actually participated, you panicked. When I thrived, you demanded we stop. That pattern reveals your true intention." I reached into my pocket and placed a key on top of the folder. "My new apartment. I move in next week." She stared at the key as though it were a live grenade. "You're leaving me?" "I left the moment you decided our commitment was negotiable. The rest has just been logistics." "Because I suggested we see other people?" "That's extreme." "No, because when faced with dissatisfaction, you chose deception over honesty. You created an arrangement designed for your benefit at my expense. When I participated equally, you attempted to manipulate, track, and control me rather than acknowledge the fundamental problem." I stood, retrieving my gym bag. "I'll pack my essentials tonight. We can arrange for the rest later." She suddenly lunged for my phone on the counter. "Who is she? I want to know who she is." I calmly reclaimed my device from her grasp. "That's no longer your concern. I have a right to know who destroyed our marriage." "You did," I replied simply. "The moment you decided that commitment was conditional and honesty was optional." As I packed a suitcase, she cycled through the familiar stages: anger, tears, accusations, bargaining. When nothing gained traction, she tried one final approach. "We can start over," she pleaded. "Counseling. A fresh start. Whatever it takes." I paused, suitcase in hand. "There's nothing to save. What you want isn't me. It's the version of me that accepted less than I deserved. That person no longer exists." At the door, I turned back one last time. "Thank you, actually." "For what?" she asked bitterly. "For suggesting we see other people. It forced me to see myself clearly for the first time in years. I'm choosing someone who values commitment, honesty, and mutual respect." "Who?" "Myself." The door closed on her stunned expression and on that chapter of my life. Outside, the evening air carried the scent of possibility. The wedding ring that had left a groove on my finger was now in my pocket, a reminder not of what I had lost, but of what I had found. My phone buzzed with a message from my marketing colleague, confirming our project meeting the next day. Whether that connection would develop into something meaningful remained to be seen. What mattered was that any relationship moving forward would begin from a place of mutual respect and authentic choice, not manipulation and control. As I drove toward my new apartment, the truth settled comfortably around me. Her suggestion that we see other people hadn't destroyed our marriage. It had simply revealed that what I thought was a partnership had actually been a power dynamic all along. The true freedom wasn't in seeing other people. It was in finally seeing myself.
Our story has come to an end. If you've made it this far, how about subscribing to our channel? It helps us immensely. I've selected 2 other videos for you that I'm sure you'll enjoy. Feel free to click on them. I'll be waiting for you in the next story. See you soon.